yeah, thank you once again. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part to help us rather in talking more about cybersecurity and getting to inspire another generation of young Africans to also get into tech, right? So for the purposes of this recording, so that we will also share with others, I'll introduce myself. I know you know me already, but that's still fine. I'm Jeffrey Takunda Murumeni, a second year computer science student at Africa University, and right here I'm representing two groups. Firstly, our computer science class, particularly in the project management class, which our lecturer, she said she'll be joining in. Hopefully she will. Dr. Zingeni, and then also for a club that specifically focuses on cybersecurity, which is called CyberGuard. So that's why we then thought of bringing you on, because you are also an expert within cybersecurity, and the fact that you are also young and also a woman, which is something that we also want to drive out there. So I'm very much excited to have you on board. On the call again, I have my team member from the project, because our project is basically bringing in key speakers to talk about tech, because we are a computer science class. So you are the very first speaker whom we've brought. So yeah, I have my friend of mine who's also on the call. Her name is Tino. Yeah, we're also in the same class. So maybe I can give you this time to introduce yourself, who Mamello is, and yeah, then we kickstart from there.
Okay, awesome. Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Mamello Mofokeng. I am from Saturated, which is a company that we started in 2019. So we're quite young. We're still about 3-4 years old. My background is within tech expertise as well as project management. I fell in love with cybersecurity, I guess, due to some hacks and actually needing to be shown a vulnerability in your network and fighting it, and then actually seeing how it impacts everything to a bigger scale, and that it's actually something that you need to practice in your day-to-day life, seeing as we're no longer just living in the physical, we're also living digitally as well. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I'll explain more. I do have some more topics and points in the presentation, but that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Awesome. So just maybe as a side note for others, I met Mamello and Nkosi from Saturated in 2022, right?
Yeah, it was 2022. Yeah, 2022.
Yes. So we were part of the top 6 finalists in the Africa Youth and Tourism Innovation Challenge. They had their brilliant idea, which was already launched, and I was also coming in, the young me, with my ideas, and from there we forged networks, which as today is a testimony that networks are very much important, and here's a result of that. So anyways, we'll get to dive straight into your presentation. We had asked you to just prepare something. Remember, you're also speaking to young tech people. So it's also good to hear from you as someone who's already practicing, so that you can inspire the next generation of young tech Africans. Yes, particularly on that, because we as a university are passionate about matters to do with Pan-Africanism. So when we have other people like you from different nationalities outside of Zimbabwe, sharing your own version of your African story, it's something that excites us. So I'll just leave this time to you to do your presentation, and then great. Before you start, sorry about that. Before you start, our lovely lecturer, whom I was telling you about, Dr. Tendai Zengeni. She's just joined in on call. She's a doctor with a PhD in, fiber optics, right? That's big. That's big. So, and again, she's also a woman in tech. So that's also something we're proud about. And Doc, meet our guest for today, a young, vibrant tech entrepreneur, Mamello. Yeah, she was just about to dive into a presentation, but I'm sure I can just say a few words to just, get to
Yes,
acquaint
hi.
you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Hi, Mamello. Pleased to meet you. And we're looking forward to getting some jewels from you today. So thank you so much for agreeing to grace us with your presence. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Okay, I'll just switch off my video so that I don't lag. And
Okay,
then
that's fine. Also do the same this side.
Same
awesome.
here.
Okay, is everything clear on your side?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. So hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Today, I'll be speaking about the meaning of organized crime in African cybersecurity. So my name is Mamello Mofokeng. I'm from a company called Saturated in South Africa, which is a sector agnostic digital solutions agency, and we work with digital products. So within our experience, we noticed that there's actually quite a bit happening that isn't really seen on the surface. And sometimes you don't even realize how vulnerable your network is until it's actually been exposed. And through being exposed and seeing that vulnerability, most of the time that exposure is for the purpose of someone wanting to commit a crime to you. And that is pretty much what is happening and what I'll be speaking about in this presentation. So as I mentioned, we are from Saturated, which is a sector agnostic digital solutions tech startup. And we basically, in our core, believe in innovation and disruption in what we do. So we really love participating in competitions and really pushing ourselves beyond our boundaries in what we do so that we can get better and learning from other young people who are out there and engaging. It's quite important. Even when you are running a business, you'll never know enough. So that's also the beauty about cybersecurity and how I actually fell in love with cybersecurity. We offer different types of services, your design, marketing, your app development, your graphic design, social media, and so forth. So we've kind of really grown a lot, starting from a very small agency and really upskilling and gaining those technical skills. And that's what we love about technology. You can really scale quite exponentially. So Saturated is 100% Black youth. We are a startup. Our headquarters are in Marshalltown, but we work in different aspects of the world. We've done projects in Namibia, in Botswana, in Lesotho, and we're really just excited to leverage and grow in the ICT space, and really passionate about closing the digital divide and transformation. So a bit about myself. I am a tech, digital, and cybersecurity practitioner. I started off with data sciences at Explore, and then kind of wanted to explore cybersecurity and did some certifications with the University of Cape Town. Sorry. And then I'm actually doing my final year this year in a Bachelor of Sciences in Life Sciences with Business Management. I've done a lot of qualifications in the cloud. I think the cloud is very important because it really speaks to scaling digitally, because we've run out of space. There's no more space, and there's an unlimited amount of space in the cloud. So it's quite important to note that. And these are some of my specialties. And yeah, that's pretty much more about me. So to start off, I wanted to actually speak about a presentation that I found was actually quite difficult finding some resources about cases in Zimbabwe that speak to cybersecurity. But this one was quite old. It was a report that was published in 2013, but it does backdate back. So there's a couple of cases that were already in the 1958, 1998. So it just goes to show that cybersecurity was always there, just that now the exponential rate at the digital growth is what has made it even more attractive to criminals out there. So within this presentation, they mainly highlighted some common laws and some cyber crimes in Zimbabwe. They also speak about how these crimes are interpreted in other courts outside of Zimbabwe and the challenges they faced within some of these cases, because it's quite complex now, because before we didn't necessarily have the framework, especially the legal framework to actually pursue these types of cases. But because at the exponential rate that our economy is growing, we actually need to implement these laws, and there's a whole field of anti-money laundering that is also quite a nice space in the cybersecurity space to go into, because you'll notice that that's where a lot of the organized crime happens, and it's actually been happening, but the digital paper trail is much easier to follow than that of a physical paper trail, if there isn't any. So here's a case from 2005 where an applicant applied for an order in court where they were looking to get the evidence of telephone conversations which were recorded. So this already in its own is a breach of your rights to privacy, which is something that's very important in South Africa. We have the POPIA Act and so forth. And this is really truly to protect your information, because what we've noticed now is there's a lot of interceptions within the networks that are actually making it difficult for people to actually be able to protect themselves or to feel safe in their own spaces. So this admission of evidence did actually violate the right to fair hearing according to the Constitution. And what the court did in this case was they did rule out that the evidence was obtained unlawfully. And irregardless of what they were trying to obtain from the actual evidence, because it was obtained in an unlawful manner, they couldn't use it. So these are some cases where in South Africa, it would be seen differently, because the court actually accepts this type of intercepted electronic mail communication in the benefit of them ruling corruption of any relationship with an accused. So sometimes you might see that certain laws in different countries will vary. So something that could be seen unlawfully in Zimbabwe might not be seen unlawfully in South Africa, especially if it's going to be beneficial for the court. So legal frameworks play a very important role within cybersecurity. These are just a couple of cases. I will share this report with you guys. You can go through some of the cases just to see how it has evolved, and how one actually needs to understand which turf you are playing in order to understand what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. So here's a bit about what is actually cybersecurity, and it's actually the art of defending computer systems, networks, and data from digital attacks. So these attacks can come in different formats. It can be stealing information, so your credit cards, your passwords. It can also come from disrupting operations. So this was when you find a vulnerability and you want to stop it, or you take down websites, your ransomwares, and then it can also be causing damage to data, so corrupting the data. So cybersecurity evolves quite a bit, and cybercrime also evolves within this, which makes it very difficult to keep it in one framework. So it requires like an ongoing, because the smarter our products are getting, the smarter the people are also going to train themselves in order to somehow find a vulnerability to take advantage of you. So what you notice within cybersecurity is there's always a hunt. There's always a hunt, and it can always start off with maybe you receive a suspicious email, something that asks you for your banking details. I mean, for most of us, especially those who are studying towards any type of ICT qualification, we already have that understanding that, okay, this is suspicious, don't click on it. But unfortunately, not everybody is privy to that, and not everybody understands. Sometimes they really catch that hook, line, sinker, which is what the hunt is about, whether it can be a bank, a fraudulent bank email, it can be an elaborate scam. It takes time. And these are just some of the things that we need to make aware to people, that if something really does sound too good to be true, the likelihood is that it is. And that is where the hook, line, and sinker comes in, because they are on the hunt for you and they will find a way to get to you. Even if they need to sacrifice a little bit of money to get into you, they know what they're going to get out of you is going to be much, much more. So when we look at organized crime in the African cybersecurity space, we often look back at how traditional organized crime works. So you have your mafia rings, they can be smuggling goods, drugs, gangs, and so forth. And now this is how one needs to imagine the criminals wielding powerful technology. They are also doing the very, very same thing, but utilizing your data and making sure that they are collaborating with each other in order to use the advancement of technology to target individuals, to target businesses, to target governments across Africa, in order for them to gain some form of financial gain or for any other malicious purpose. Sometimes some people just do it for fun. So what we can see within Africa's organized crime landscape is that it's very expansive in the use of the internet, and as well as the digitalization of things that we are used to doing physically, that now we've evolved to using technology. That is also a vulnerability that they see as an opportunity to get to you. So these kinds of vulnerabilities, and you couple it in with some poverty or corruption, or even your weak law enforcement, because maybe it's not a priority sometimes for them to be looking for cyber criminals versus the actual criminals that they can bust physically. So this is what presents a unique set of challenges in Africa, because we are not equipped to actually be able to catch these high-tech masterminds. And most of the time, everything is readily available on the dark web, where all the criminal activities are exposed and actually hidden in plain sight. So some of the key operations that you'll notice is that there's always going to be financial fraud. So this will come from getting an email from a bank, maybe requesting you to log in. This is called phishing. And these are types of tactical techniques that they are using in order to compromise your email communications, or any way for them to get in touch with you. They are now leveraging this in order to access those financial wallets that you have, in order for them to extract the value. The second one is there's data breaches. And this is when your personal information is then stolen, and most of the time can be sold online, or they will actually use that information to come back to gaining the financial fraud. So they'll use your personal information to gain access to your finances. So most of the time, it's also sold for a hefty profit, and this will depend on the type of data that is being sold. Most of the time, it's big data, unless it is targeted specifically to you. The other activity and operation we can look at is your ransomware attacks. Most of this time, this happens at a larger scale with large data. There are also instances where you have it where someone has some information of yours that you don't want out there, and they use it against you by demanding a ransom in order for you to keep it safe. But it was always yours to keep safe. They are the ones who actually broke in to take it away to use it against you. So that's also quite a common key operation that we see in the space. So when we look at the Zimbabwean context, we see how and where the hurdles are in combating organized crime. So there's three that we can look at. And the first one is limited awareness. So people actually even lacking the knowledge to identify that this is indeed a cyber threat and how I should avoid it. Most of the time, we are quite vulnerable. We easily click. Maybe we're not interested. We don't click. But there's a high probability that once you've already clicked, they already have access to what they need. The next one is the technological gap. So the outdated infrastructure also makes it very, very difficult, and also makes us vulnerable to the attacks, because they are already using technology that is way ahead of where we currently are. And the last but not least is the legal framework. So the existing laws, they might not be sufficient to effectively prosecute cyber criminals. So we can catch them, but legally there's not much we can do because the laws don't necessarily have a clear way to prosecuting them. So now if we look at the Web 2.0 to where we are now, which is the Web 3.0, it's can be seen as moving from an internet of people to an internet of things. And you can already see how we are already connected to our devices versus being connected to humans. And that is where the vulnerability also exists. So it doesn't mean that we should be afraid of technology, because it's not going anywhere. So we have to think of technology as a friend that will enable us to actually do better, to be quicker, and to be efficient in what we do. But it's important to note that data is what allows you to measure and optimize your defense strategies in real time. So as I mentioned that we once experienced a vulnerability. We had a malicious SQL infection on our server. It was really terrible because the more we tried to clean it, the more it would spread. But what helped us in actually undergoing this process was all the data we were able to collect about the attack, so that by the time we resolved the attack, we knew what type of attack it was and what type of precautionary measures one needs to put in place in order to defeat the attack. So it's also always important to note that data is really important when it comes to how you actually want to strategize your defense. So how we can actually mitigate these kinds of threats are through 4 simple steps. So you can have your individual awareness, so educating yourself and educating other people on the basic practices. So at home, teaching your mom, Mama, don't make your password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or Mama, when I see an email that comes from the Bank of Africa that says you have inherited this amount of money, don't click. charity begins at home, and this is how we'll be able to spread the awareness. We also have business securities. So it's important for a business to also invest in having those types of security measures. So that is your firewalls, encrypting the data, as well as employee training. Then we have collaboration. So having collaborations between governments, law enforcement, private sector, in order for them to share the information and the data that they have surrounding how to combat cybersecurity and what they've experienced. And then lastly, we have your legal frameworks and your international cooperation. So having those strong cybercrime laws and international cooperation, because that's what is going to assist us when it comes to prosecuting the criminals. So what we notice the most about cybercrime is that it comes at a human cost. So most of the time, it will extend to money being stolen. So this can also differ. Sometimes you have identity theft, where someone's personal information is actually stolen in order for them to do fraudulent activities. There's also a disruption of services, which is what we spoke about ransomware and someone stealing important information and holding it against the person whom the information was stolen from, so that it is not leaked, and holding it ransom. Then we have loss of trust. So the more frequent cyber attacks erode, the more we have less trust in online services and financial institutions. So this will kind of make it harder for someone to say, do I want to have the app on my phone, seeing as this is what it led to? No, let me rather just go to the bank and fix everything physically, because I'm afraid I've lost trust in this application, which was meant to actually make my life easier, but it also opened up a door of vulnerability. And then lastly, we have psychological impact. So this is where they study your victims, and they really look at how they look at the psychology and the suffering of someone in order to actually extract and see the sense of vulnerability they have, in order to play with their emotions so that they can trust you. And in trusting them, you will then obviously take advantage of them and either steal money or more. So there's a whole bunch of careers in cybersecurity because of all of the vulnerabilities that exist. So the growing threat actually presents a very unique opportunity for young, talented individuals like yourself. This is why you should really consider a career in cybersecurity. There is a high demand because we are all going digital. We're going to have digital babies one day. So let's just accept that the demand is going to grow. And through that, you will need cybersecurity experts to protect and defend you. There's also diverse opportunities. In almost every single sector, there is some form of cybersecurity practice that needs to be there. So you can really, really branch out depending on where your passion is, in order to find the niche of what you love in what you do. It's also great because you know that what you are doing is making a difference, because you are actually keeping people safe. And the other nice, attractive one is that it's got they have very, very competitive salaries in the industry. And this is because of the high demand. So the demand for the skill professionals in Africa is growing rapidly. And the diverse opportunities make it easier for you to kind of pick the type of career path you want to go on based on what interests you. And if you choose to make this kind of a difference, you can directly contribute to protecting individuals, businesses, and even the critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. And then the professionals typically enjoy competitive salaries due to the high demand of the job. So here are some top 5 career paths in the field. So you have a security analyst. So what they do is they monitor networks and systems for suspicious activities. What's really great about this now is we have AI, and a lot of these monetization techniques have been automated. So you can really leverage the AI to actually study the paths, and it makes it really, really great to prevent future attacks. Then you have an ethical hacker. So this is also known as a penetration tester. So it's someone who legally, literally breaks into the organization. And this is in order for them to identify the vulnerabilities. And then you have a security architect. So they create and they will oversee all of the security measures for an organization, ensuring that there is a strong holistic approach that aims at protecting the data and the systems. You also have an incident responder. So this leads to the initial response from a cyber attack. So it's someone in the front line. You think about a security guard, or you think about an officer on call. They are the ones who respond immediately and are meant to eradicate the threat and restore the affected systems. And lastly, we also have a cloud security specialist. I did mention that the cloud is really just for anybody who has an interest in technology. You have to be cloud equipped. So it's someone who secures cloud-based environments and applications and making sure that they are compliant and within the regulations. So when it comes to changing the mindset, the best defense is a good defense. And that's what we practice when it comes to cybersecurity. And what we also notice that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we use to create them. So you always need to be on your toes because they are getting smarter and smarter. So some training and some certifications that one can already do. You have some Microsoft Azure. There's a whole bunch of security certifications there. Same with AWS, Google Cloud, and IBM Cloud, and Cisco. So leverage these free resources and get certified. We also, at Saturated, have a platform that we have developed surrounding EdTech and digitalization. You can scan the QR code. It's called Spanner online. We have a couple of free courses there as well. We also have a free course directly that speaks about cybersecurity there. So please feel free to go through it and let us know what you think. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And please let me know if you have any questions.
Wow. Yeah, we'll definitely give you a round of applause. Thank you so much for such an impressive presentation. I'm sure if you were speaking to a layman who isn't much into tech, the person would actually have grasped the understanding of what cybersecurity is and why it is important. And you brought up, talked about something that we were planning to ask you to say, how can we say Africa itself, is cybersecurity really relevant to it, right? And you talked about some of the attacks, like your phishing. A lot of us fall for those traps on a daily basis, where you get this link which is saying you've just won $100,000. Click this link so that you can receive your reward. Or like what you were mentioning, the email thing, that has happened to me a couple of times, but because of knowledge, I won't follow the email, but it gets into your spam, and then it says, oh, you've received inheritance from your long lost cousin and all that. And when you look at our setting, where if you are in a position where you are really looking for money, and then you see such an email, you might be like, maybe God, maybe God, just maybe. And then you try to just follow the link, and then bang, you are already attacked. So yeah, thank you very much for such an amazing presentation. So as I was preparing for this discussion, really, as we just round up, we have a few questions that we'd really like to ask. Firstly, I've seen that with regards to cybersecurity, when you look at the news, a lot of the hacking comes from Russia. I don't know if this is a media propaganda thing or what, but when you look at it on a global level, I've seen two main countries that pop up. You're saying hackers from Russia have done this, hackers from China have done this. And then when you look at, when you come to a continental level, which is Africa, the most popular countries I've seen, South Africa and Nigeria. Why do you think these countries, whether on the African continent or on a global stage, are so what can I say? So, like, each case of hacking is related to those countries. What do you think could be the reason?
I think a lot of it does have to do with media propaganda. I won't lie. I think it's meant to also look that way. And also, a lot of people hide their network. And by hiding their networks, they select those specific related countries, and that's usually how they get to navigate certain spaces. So it's very difficult unless it's tracked directly through your IP address. And then most of the time, it's through historical data that people make those assumptions. So it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult to say because some hacking incidents are actually state backed. So the only real way to actually know is by a verification of IP addresses.
Oh, okay, okay. No, that's a fair point. I've also from the research, seeing that most of these hackers they also make use of the dark web, which is far much more harder again to trace. But yeah, it's quite interesting when you look at the stories that are happening within the cybersecurity space. Because I was recently reading an article that Microsoft's the senior officials from Microsoft had their emails hacked, and again, I don't know if it's media propaganda or what. It was linked to the Russians, and then recently, even the U.S. Department, I think, of Security and all that, they had an attack as well. I've also seen one from Australia where the hacker managed to have access to about 9.7 million people's medical data, right? And that's huge. And the amount of money that person would want for ransom, yeah, it would be quite huge. Okay, so we've talked about these cases where cyber attacks occur, right? So what would you recommend? You talked about one thing such as the education that is critical. And here at university, I'd like to zone it down to Africa University. We have a few students who do computer science. So when you talk about matters to do with this, we're able to understand on an awareness level, right? What other steps would you recommend for maybe the whole Enterprises Africa University on a more technical level, which we can implement? Because I know currently we have our Sophos, which is active. What other measures would you recommend for a university or a business, an enterprise, whatever, to implement to make sure that they are cyber secure?
I think that it would be very, very sorry, it would be very, very smart for the institution to already look at some of the existing architectural infrastructures that are in place and already adapt that. Because most of the time, that type of framework is designed so that whatever enterprise you come from, you are easily able to intercept that and then adapt those principles. I also think it's quite important for institutions to not seclude themselves or completely remove themselves from other types of knowledge houses. So some of the qualifications I'm speaking of are qualifications that you can do online. So I think it would be smart to kind of have those maybe integrated learning paths that allow for the students to actually obtain these certifications, because they will also benefit them in the long run in order for them to get practical experience and also get the students to challenge the institution to see if they can break into the institution's network, so that they themselves can also see what they are being exposed to. So it mainly just comes from how well the institution is willing to allow these certifications to be incorporated when it comes to having practical labs and real life experience, because that is what's going to give you an advantage moving forward in your career path.
Awesome. I'm very happy that, we have our lecturer there, Dr. Tendai Zingini, on the call to actually hear this. It's a very valid point, which, our guest speaker here highlighted, that we need to incorporate these trainings and certifications within our academic learning, such that it's not just content from you alone, but after the exam, I also have a certification to which I can actually use in the industry. So yeah, I'm very happy on the code doc. And then maybe as one of our last questions, we would like to just have an understanding of the emerging trends that are happening in cybersecurity. As you mentioned in your presentation, you say that, the internet is moving from an internet of people to an internet of things, as you were mentioning about the transition from Web 2.0 to 3.0. And for a lot of us who don't understand technology, we get so afraid that, especially with the coming in of AI, everyone is like, will I still be relevant? Right? And, you brought up something that I also try to share with people, that technology isn't bad. It's how we then use it to make sure that it complements other areas of our life, to make sure that, as humans, we have better lives, right? That's how I view tech. So what are some of these emerging trends, as someone who's already in the industry? What are you seeing growing in cybersecurity? Because I've heard a friend of mine actually saying, what if, with how independent artificial intelligence is becoming, what if it is the one that is now starting this cyber attacks on us? You see? So those are now already fears which other people are now, having. So do you think that will happen? AI now being the one to lead the cyber attacks? Or what other emerging trends do you see, and how we as university students can actually make sure we position ourselves appropriately for those trends?
Okay, so I think firstly, when it comes to AI taking over, a lot of misconceptions that we have about AI is we forget that the data comes from us, So a lot of the AI tools that we are seeing now as a result of trained data and machine learning that has happened for over a period of time. So even if you use certain tools, you'll note that they can only backdate to a certain degree, or they don't necessarily have information that is happening now, because we actually feed the AI the data. So it would have to come from us to feed it to perform the crimes on us, but that data would come from us because we are feeding it that data. So I can definitely say it would be possible, but it wouldn't get possible to a degree where it thinks on its own, because at this point we are teaching it how to think. We are we need to learn and work with it. It's like a baby, you know? So you have to kind of teach it, like even when you are prompting, you need to teach it a certain way so that it can give you results in that way. So it's important to note that there will always still be those vulnerabilities because it's not human. But within that, you don't have the human error that you would find in humans in AI, which is great because then we are gonna get better because the AI is going to help us to get better by removing certain human errors that are inevitable in what we do. And then when we look at what the trends are now, is we're seeing a lot of ethical hacking. So a lot of hacking is taking place. So people they don't want to get hacked to have ransomware against. They would rather let someone hack them and fix the problem. Another thing that we are seeing is within the anti-money laundering and CFT regulatory frameworks for digital commerce, you can note that AI-driven defense systems are there, and that there's different types of financial action task forces that are rolling out penalties to curb these cyber crimes, which already within itself is prompting governments to adapt cybercrime and financial intelligence within the legislation. So there's quite a big gap now within the legal frameworks to be adopted. So there's a big opportunity legally as well in cybersecurity, because as I mentioned, once we can find the cyber criminals and catch them, but without those frameworks, what are we going to do? Because we don't know how to. It's not the same as someone who's been murdered or raped, because we've dealt with these crimes. We know how to deal with them. We know how to sentence them. But with cyber crimes, because they're so ever evolving and the frameworks aren't there, we're going to end up with cyber criminals who probably get probation, or there's really no real hard lesson that they're taking, which then makes it a very attractable market to be in, because you're like, okay, I can commit this crime, I'll get a slap on the wrist, and I'll keep on going. So there's quite a big opportunity there, because even if you look at some of the big hacks that are happening, have you ever followed the case to where they found the hackers, they were arrested, and they were charged and so forth? It's very, very, very rare. Most of the time, they just get away with it.
Wow. That's impressive. I think for me, the most interesting one, because at this point I'm also very much interested in AI and what's going on. So the AI defense systems, complementary defense systems, having AI on top of the knowledge that I have as a cybersecurity person, now making use of AI. I think that's really an amazing way to go. And yeah, I think another activity which we can also suggest to our doctor there is to maybe have an ethical hacking competition here at Africa University. I don't know, Doc, what do you think about the idea?
Thank you, Jeff. I think that's a very good idea. I think we're going to organize probably some hackathons next semester, hopefully. Yeah, so thank you so much for that suggestion, Jeff.
Yeah, I think it would be exciting, and we actually implement these things which we are learning, and to make sure that as a school, again, we are also not vulnerable, because yeah, student information is quite valuable. Yeah, so we don't want to have any compromise. But anyways, we are so much grateful for having you, Miss Mamello. sharing these nuggets, which I'm sure all the people who will be listening to our conversation will find super valuable. And I think for me, again, you've also generated an interest in actually pursuing cybersecurity because, yeah, the world is becoming more and more digital. And the more it becomes more digital, the more there will also be crime. And the more there will be need for people who will be able to stop or, control the crime and all that. So it's quite a very relevant topic right now. And I'm hoping, even in our College of Engineering, we'll soon be having a cybersecurity degree. Isn't that true, Doc? Yeah,
Very soon. We're actually working on it right now.
awesome. So yeah, we can actually rope in such industry experts to assist in the curriculum development itself. Because
Yes, I'm actually happy to have attended this call so that Mamello, I might invite her to actually, take part in that actually. Yeah.
awesome. And also, Doc, Mamello, our doc over here, she's also on the board of, Zimbabwe's second biggest network operator, called Net One. And again, they also have leverage because they sort of have good government backing. So if we were to go through here again and suggest, as you're mentioning, our legislation is not at a good pace as the crime rates that are happening in the cyberspace. So we'll be going through here to reach out to our government and also reaching out to these network operators as well to make sure, because they also have valuable information, you see, about us as their subscribers and all that. So we wouldn't want that to fall into the wrong hands. But yeah, I'm very much grateful for having you and for speaking to us, inspiring us, especially, us as young computer science students, because we always ask ourselves, what am I going to do with this degree? You see, so if the more we hear such stories about you and even about entrepreneurship itself, African entrepreneurship, we continue to have hope in our continent. And so, yeah, we're very much grateful for that. Doc, we're also grateful for you facilitating this, making sure that, giving us these projects that have that have given us, the opportunity to hunt for these industry experts and also have the meaningful talks like this, because we need to have more of these conversations to make sure that we are relevant students, right? Yes, so on behalf of my class, the project management class, and also on behalf of the Cyber Guard Club, would like to say a huge thank you to you, Ms. Mamello, and your team at Saturated for also allowing you to be with us. Please do pass my regards to Nkosi. And yeah, Doc, do you have any parting shots?
Yes, I just want to say thank you, Mamello, for giving us all this valuable information. I actually learned a lot from you today. And I'd also like to repeat that I think I'll be looking for you behind the scenes so that you can you can help us out, with the valuable experience and your knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So yeah, Doc, you came in a bit late, but I had mentioned that, Mamello and I, we met in 2022 in Namibia at the Africa Youth and Tourism Innovation Challenge. They were first runner-up, yes, and then I was the second runner-up. So it's been a connection that's been there since 2022. And now in 2024, and we are still growing.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, it's going to reap fruits. That's a good connection and good networking. Good luck, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mamello.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Awesome.